Hello, hello. You're tuning into the Careering with Cameron podcast, your safe place to ask all the dumb questions about finding a job. Hey everybody, it's Kevin Cameron with Careering with Cameron, and I am joined today by Wendi Wray of Beyond the Military. She is a career coach and also a veteran. Thank you for your service. And also somebody who has really focused her career on how to help military professionals find their opportunity in the private sector when they're finishing up with military. And this is an area that really is underserved, frankly, helping our military veterans and individuals who are still in the military to find what's next when they have time to do that is critical and often quite misunderstood by most recruiters, including myself when I was a recruiter, of like really not knowing how to transition them and how to translate their experience over. So it's been a challenge. Wendi, give us a little bit of background in terms of like, obviously it's a rough job market right now. Is it the same kind of thing for military folks?
Oh, yes. And okay. I also want to just add that one, it's about the same, but we want to add a little of layer to kind of context of what veterans go through. So they've been out of the workforce already. So similar to early in career, they've been in school, all they know is learning, and now they're going into this new environment. And so similar with the military, some of them have been to college, some of them have not at all. This is their first time going into the workforce. But now they're going into a different environment, into a civilian environment where there isn't a lot of structure. And, you know, they're not to say that there isn't, but not as structured as the military. So I think that that's the additional layer that comes with it, is this civilian adjustment, different environment that they have to adjust to. And with that comes language. I like to use the analogy of learning a new language, because they truly are. It's true. It's like you know the work, you know how to do it, and the terminology. It's like kind of like when you're pivoting industries, right? If you're working for healthcare and now you're going into manufacturing, I mean, you have to learn the terminology. And that's how veterans, I want to say that's the additional layer that we go through when we're getting out. And it makes it a little bit more challenging. And the other part of that is that a lot of the hiring leaders that are wanting to hire veterans, they don't know how to understand. They don't understand if the veteran isn't prepared to translate their experience into civilian language. They're like, well, it sounds great that you kicked down doors and saved all these things. And, you know, you had these missions and you did all of this great stuff, jumped out of airplanes. But how is that going to benefit my organization, my team? And so that's kind of like the two sides of the equation, right? I mean, a lot of the engineers, they go to get their degree in engineering or software engineers. I mean, hiring leader, if you're hiring for that, you know exactly what they've learned. You know exactly what they got, what the certification entails, versus the military. If you're an infantry leader or a mechanic, it's like, well, sounds great, but how can you come help us into our manufacturing or be a supervisor on our team? And so that's where I've seen where a lot of our fellow veterans are struggling as that additional layer.
Yeah, it's interesting. As you were sharing that, I was thinking back to a conference I attended, and I heard a speaker talking about how they enjoy hiring veterans because they're so responsible. And the example was they'll be in the front row, they'll be there 5 minutes early, and they'll be ready with note and with paper and pen and ready to go. So my next question to that, and based on what you just shared, and I'm glad that you did in terms of translating, is there risk then also when you haven't translated the skills to not engaging that person properly and having them come into a role where they're in a quote unquote job, right? It's not a onboarding process that's very successful because they're not really fulfilled. You hired somebody to be there on time and to be able to take notes, and that's not what they're entirely doing. They can bring a lot more to the table. So like, how do you, so two questions. First question is, how do you help the military personnel to be able to understand their skills, to translate them to this new language? Is the part A. Part B, I also want to cover now, how do you take that employer and translate for them what they're hiring in terms of that experience? Like, how do you do that?
Yeah, well, that's a great question. And and as you understand this with your own talent company here, we're as veterans, we're so eager to jump in and solve the problems because they've been trained. They're like, okay, we can figure it out. It's kind of like our slogan, right? Just going to figure it out. Another analogy is like, we're going to build a plane as we're flying it. And that motivates us, right? It's like, we love that. It's very exhilarating. And this is what we signed up for. But with that, that's the risk, right? For that position and for that veteran, for the hiring leader. I start with the emotional intelligence aspect of it. Understanding that no matter if you don't have specific correlation to that experience or that certification that's required, to understand what the hiring leader is hiring you for. What problems are you solving for? Not what you think needs to be solved or what you want to be solved. Because at the end of the day, there's a job description for a reason.
Yep.
And in the military, we really don't have that. It's whatever is assigned to you. One day you could be the human resources manager. Next week, if we need someone in the communications department, you are now dual-hatted. And it's just how it's going to go. No questions asked. Yes, sergeant. No, sergeant. Yes, sir. And again, it comes with that level of responsibility, right? Depending on your own leadership and initiative approach. And so that I start with that, right? Like you need to understand what is needed in what consists of that job description. Like why are you taking that position? They're not just filling that job to have another body. There's a reason why you are being hired. Sure. And so when they can understand that and we keep it within those boundaries, now we're not trying to solve for all these what ifs and explaining stories or experiences that has nothing to do with the job. And so when we can narrow that down and say, okay, so this is a project manager position role. This is what you need to understand and know. And here's what the working conditions will be depending on what industry, right? So once they know that, we can now work on their experiences that they've had and always starting with what they excelled at and what they're passionate about. If project management and they enjoy the Excel sheets and they enjoy communicating with stakeholders, we are going to elaborate on that and provide in the self format, as you know. Sure. This is what the situation was, the task, what I did, and the results. Here's what I provide, the value that I bring. And so it gets difficult when nothing really translates, right? When the experience, they were a mechanic and they were mainly dealing with airplanes or helicopters, and now they want to go work for a technology company. And it's more so now putting their leadership experience. A lot of veterans have been in a leadership role. Within the first 2 years, they get promoted to a leadership role, meaning that they are in charge of other people. And when you think about it, they're like 21 years old at the most when they're promoted into these positions. In the civilian sector, a lot of their peers are still in school. Yep. And so, that's where we start getting a lot more credibility and trust by putting that on paper. Yes, you may not have your project management certification yet, but you're working on it. And this is the experience that you have. These are the hours that you've put in, so on and so forth. But so I think I answered part of your question.
Part A, yes.
Part
B. In terms of how do you translate, are there, I'm just going to kind of add on to that, and I promise we'll go back to part B too. But are there specific words that you see are often used
that
can be flipped more easily to the more corporate side?
Absolutely. So I like to use this framework where we want to identify what they did, right? So if they led people, they've managed a process, they've solved tasks under pressure, whatever that may be, we start there.
Yep.
Because again, not everyone has been in charge of over 100 people. Some of them, they've been in charge of 2 people. But we want to start there. And then we go into identifying the category of their military experience. So if they were primarily planning operations, right, going back to the project management example, they worked in project, they've worked on projects, they've worked in operations management, putting training events together, or just learning and development, training coordination. A lot of the times they want to just use, managing equipment or maintaining readiness instead of using compliance, quality assurance, risk management, words that make sense in the civilian sector, right?
Yes.
And then we move into the the reverse of removing the military jargon, because it's so easy. You've known that language for so long that it's like, it's like another language, right? So instead of saying that they were responsible for ensuring that the platoon readiness and the briefing commander were accountable, now we can say they managed a team, personal accountability, reporting for a high-performing team in a fast-paced environment. Just terms like that will help someone on the other side understand, but for them more so to speak that language and be more consistent and do it even more so. It becomes now their language. And adding results. A lot of the times, what I've noticed, even with myself, not that I forget, but because we're so used to putting others before us, right? It's like, I didn't do this. My soldiers did this. Yes, but you were the leader, right? So ensuring that we add the results that we've provided. We've saved X amount of time is typically what the veteran will say, versus I was able to complete this in, 30% less time than before. So moving that language again from we to I to include the results within that resume bullet or just interview question.
Yeah.
And again, just ensuring that it matches the job description, ensuring that what you're communicating for that specific role is accurate, because we don't want to add. I mean, we're already only get a page of a resume. We want to use that real estate as much as we can with the right keywords for the ATS, the application tracking system, to help us out.
So, and I am seeing quite a bit, even outside the military as well, of people really needing to think through the I versus we, because it's a point of distinguishment in terms of, were you responsible? Were you not responsible? Were you involved? Were you not involved? I think that people are many times a little bit shy of taking complete ownership of something. But when they don't, then it appears that they were just there. They were in the car and everybody else was doing their thing. I think that that's an important fact to bring up. And it's definitely something that in all industries is a challenge. Okay, so part B. How do we talk to our employers now? How do we get them to understand what this person who sadly has not met you, they have not had some help translating their resume and their skills over.
Yeah.
They're going in cold, right? And they're sending in their application and resume to this hiring manager. How do we help the hiring manager to understand what's going on?
Yeah. And this is a tough one, because a lot of the times the hiring manager doesn't even get the opportunity to see the resume, right? Because the sourcers, the recruiters are like, well, this one, nothing matches, or like 10% match according to the ATS, depending on what ATS system they're using.
Sure.
But if there's a hiring manager on LinkedIn, I like to use the example of LinkedIn, and they see someone, because that's the beauty about LinkedIn, you can see second and third and fourth connections. So you and I may be connected, but you see someone that commented on my post or another connection that I have that's a veteran looking for a job per se. And they're like, open to project management opportunities. And you're like, well, all I see on your LinkedIn, as you can only see the first couple, I believe it's like 5 words of their headline, is transitioning service member or transitioning military. Or sometimes they have company commander, anything with commander keywords that are leadership. And again, it varies, but for the most part, veterans that are getting serious into going into the civilian sector typically use a transitioning into the civilian sector terminology. Okay. So one that tells you that they are in transition from military to civilian sector. So that's a good thing. The question is, when are they available? Some of them are available a year after, within 6 months. Some could be 3 weeks. And then the other part to that, when they are looking at their experience on LinkedIn, again, just using the LinkedIn example, if they have anything with leader behind it, commander behind it, that means that they have more experience than between 4 and 6 years of experience with just leading people. They are either have been a program manager, have been a director, have been a project manager. That's also a huge one, operations manager. So a managerial opportunity. Now for the ones that they haven't even updated their LinkedIn. That's another thing that I'm trying to push a lot more on LinkedIn too, is for them to do that at least 6 months out. Really a year, but 6 months is still pretty doable. If they're just, they have their location or they're just a veteran, I mean, it truly possibly also means that they're not even looking yet. But I mean, it's difficult. It is a difficult topic because if they're on LinkedIn, they're either starting early or they're just out there looking for a job now. So it's going to vary. But again, if they do have a resume in front of them and they see similar words, commander, leader, operations manager, they have at least 4 years of experience. There's also a non-commissioned officer terminology. That's mainly for our enlisted personnel. They also have a ton of experience. I mean, I want to say that they have the most experience because we have enlisted personnel and we have officers. So they work together, but a lot of the times the non-commissioned officers have more time in the service, so they have more experience. But it just depends too on their specific job that they've had. And with the non-commissioned officers, they have more autonomy to move from different jobs versus the officers. It's more of, you've commissioned as an HR officer, human resources officer, you'll stay in this lane until, if you really want to move, there's an entire process for that. But with non-commissioned officers, it's more encouraging for them to do that based on their growth ladder as well. Yeah.
Very interesting. So, they're the non-commissioned, they're moving laterally more frequently as well.
Correct. Yes.
Very interesting. Okay.
Yeah. And the reason for that, it's based on their growth opportunities. Some of them can only be at a certain rank and, they can move up, but their jobs now become more general. It's more just managerial. And so for the folks that like to be more hands-on, those are the ones that are like, okay, I no longer want to be in, let's see, something that I'm trying to think of an example. As a mechanic, I want to be in the logistics side of it. Then it's an easier move because that's also a role that's more needed in that specific. And it's also based off installations and similar to corporate America, right? Which jobs do we need more in certain locations or so on and so forth.
Makes sense. Yeah. That's really interesting. The other thing that I think is really a great part of this to highlight, and we talked the other day about this, and I was not aware of it at that point, but many times when you are going through a transition into corporate, there is an opportunity for you to spend about 6 months before you actually make that switch. And so with all of the conversation right now around talent pipelining and organizations really identifying the people that they're looking for so that they can kind of continue to work with them when opportunities arise, they already sort of know what that pool looks like. What a golden opportunity for an organization to develop a pipeline with people who are ready to complete their service and move into corporate at that point. So are there ways for organizations to really kind of focus in that space, to have some pipelines?
Yeah, absolutely. And the one that comes to mind, hiring our heroes. So that one you have to, and I'm not sure on timeline on that one right now. Some things changed about a year or so ago. And it's such a great opportunity. So for those of you that are listening, if you're a veteran or you are getting out or know someone that's in the military and you know that they may be getting out soon, hiring our heroes is a program. It's a 6-month fellowship that certain corporations, companies as well, small companies, have are now a part of that program.
I love it.
Where now Wendi, if I know I'm getting out next year, I can apply for that. They will then provide me, several opportunities. I get to apply for that. I can, come work for, the military, and, I want to go into communications and, do different things with communications or that role, that job description. The company just has to fulfill that job description. They have to provide all of that and also be able to have that 6-month period of daily work for them to do. And I mean, now work from home, remote, that's also available. But I always encourage the on-site if you're able, just because it gets you with other humans.
Yes.
And that's what we're used to when we're in the military. We want to go on site or be hybrid, at the very minimum, be hybrid, because it's not just the transition of, again, employment. It's an entire life transition of, okay, now I can wear whatever I want. Right. And for my ladies out there, I mean, and the military is getting better with this. Now I can wear my hoop earrings. Now I can have, color on my nails, and I can wear my hair up instead of, in a different way. I can dye my hair blue if I want. So it's, it's a different transition. It's not just the career, but it's the entire life aspect, and being okay with getting to work on time and not being 15 minutes early all the time, which I'm not saying don't do that. But, I learned really quickly when I was working remote that no one's showing up to the meeting 15 minutes before. Everyone's joining exactly at 3 p.m. No one's joining at 2:45 because they're in another meeting. Yes. And so, being okay with the little things that we're so used to doing and ready to solve when, right away. And that's the other part, Kevin. It's like we're constantly like, oh, let's solve this today. We can solve this week. But we don't need to solve it this week. We have 30 days to solve this. How can we use our team or leverage the tools that we have to slow down a little and, adjust to that work environment? And not to say that it's slower, but mentally we have to also adjust and adapt into being okay with going with the pace, right? Going with the pace that the company's already in, because that could also backfire, and it has before to some of the candidates that I've helped place. They're just so eager to start and they want to excel like they always have, which is great. But you have teams, you have coworkers, and they will also provide their feedback. And they work with you. So at the end of the day, you want to be able to have that flexibility and understand that not everything will get done this week, that we have 30 days or, based on the project timelines.
Yeah,
a little bit longer.
That's great feedback. And I'm glad that you added that, because it is something that joining an organization, making sure that you are complementing the team is important. And then, we'll just play off the idea of not being there 15 minutes early as being a similar type thing to not finishing the project 15 minutes early. You can get there when everybody else gets there, and you have separate tools that they don't have that will help them, and you can sort of help them through that. So that's excellent. Wendi, how do you work when you're working with somebody who is transitioning? Like, what's the normal process for you?
By that, you mean like the framework that I use, like our
yes,
first
absolutely.
connection.
Like how, if somebody were to get in touch with you, and our audience is listening today, somebody says, you know what, I need to get on the phone or get in touch with Wendi. Like, what does the process look like? How does it work? So
I start with an initial call, because again, we have to figure out if we're a good fit and where they are in the process. So 30 minutes, we go over where they are and where they want to go, right? Ideally. A lot of the times I figured out during these 30-minute calls, and if we don't end up working together, the value of it is for them to understand exactly where they want to go, right? Yep. And I shouldn't use the word exactly, at least have a better idea where they want to go, even before coming to me thinking that they wanted to go to another direction. So a lot of the time it changes. And here's an example. So I had a conversation with, he was, I just forgot his job in the military, but he was a company commander. He was in charge of a smaller team. Well, not too small, but I want to say about 50 people. And he led that team. He pretty much supervised the team. He ensured that everything got done, the personnel, the equipment side, the financials, all of that. And so he thought he wanted to go into business development and sales. And he had like 4 other ideas. But at the end of the day, what drives him, what helps him wake up in the morning, is that connection with people, being on the ground and being in it, right? He's not the one that's like, I'm going to be behind a computer and looking at Excel sheets. He's more of the people guy. So I asked him, like, well, why not focus just on operations management? You're, or in the manufacturing industry, or somewhere where you can actually be like that general manager for people. Like, you're talking to them every day. You're helping them solve their admin problems. You're there with them. And he's like, I never thought about that. I just thought that I needed to find something that matched some of my experience and the salary, of course. I'm like, well, if we start with what drives you and what will motivate you to go to work, because remember, this is what you're going to be in for at least a couple of years. And this is, at least this is the goal. We don't want to be there for a year and then do this all over again. Right. And so even again, just with those 30 minutes, it's helpful to understand what my experience is. Okay, I've done this, but also what is out there that translates so easily. And it's something that you love to do. It's something that's going to make it a lot easier, right? I mean, I could never be in a job where it's like accounting or, I'm data specific, right? Because I would go crazy. I'm like, no, I can't do this. I love the people aspect as well. So it makes it easier to apply for those jobs, be excited about those opportunities. In an interview, I mean, Kevin, you know this, you can tell when someone is excited about that opportunity versus someone that's like, I really need a job. Like I'm here to fulfill and say the question and answer the questions that you're asking me. And it happens all the time. And I don't know why we do this. We think that this is going to solve our problem, but it doesn't. And so that's where we begin. We begin with that conversation. If we're a good fit and they're like, okay, I need help specifically in identifying their challenges, right? A lot of the challenges are interview prep, because they're like, what are they going to ask me? Like, and here's the reason why. A lot of the enlisted veterans, the way that they get promoted, they go to interviews. They go to interviews with senior leaders where they're asked questions. It could be historical, military questions. It could be about the uniform. It could be about anything, about the organization. What does this really mean in our unit? Yada, yada, yada. So they know what questions, at least they have a good amount of questions to study from. So they're prepared.
Sure.
But in the civilian sector, we don't have that, right? It's more of like, just be ready to tell me about yourself and, give me examples of XYZ experience. And so that's one of the challenges that I've seen, at least even when I was a recruiter, well, do you know what I'm going to be asked? Can you give me an idea of what this hiring leader could ask me, which is a great question. But I actually don't, right? Here's kind of like along the lines to be ready, for you to answer, but we don't. And it's okay. And that's another level that I have to, help them and say, it's okay if you don't know, right? But here's where we need to prepare. We need to have at least 10 stories where you can correlate these experiences into, right? In this format. So it's now you're not waiting to think. Now you have it in your toolkit and you're like, okay, this could go with this. And now we're communicating it without the military jargon. So that's, if we identify like, okay, Wendi needs help with interview prep because she's applied, she's had 3 interviews, but she didn't move into the role or the next interview, then we have an interview problem. And now with technology, a lot of veterans are using AI for resumes, which is great. Highly encouraged to use AI if possible, when possible, in a way too where you know what you're doing with that.
Yes.
Yes. That's
it's a resource. It's not the end game.
Just a resource. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. And of course, we can finesse it as, you've done this before. And your LinkedIn, right? How can you be found? And again, with the interviews and ensuring that they understand what the benefits consist of, right? Are we talking 401k? Is that included? Are we also receiving a stipend or or commission bonus? What does that look like for the company? Does the salary meet kind of like the expectation and or the market, right? Looking at all of that. And then at the end, ensuring that we find them the best role that works for them. So
awesome.
It varies. But at the end of the day, I say the 30 minutes is super valuable. And that's my goal, to provide as much value as possible for them, even if we don't work together, because it's a starting point.
I love that. And I think it's so important to give them a starting point that is, a true compass in terms of the direction that they want to go, because it doesn't matter where you're coming from, whether it's high school or college or military or professional. If you don't have any idea where you want to go, it's hard, as you said, to sell that to somebody that they should hire you. That spark just is not there. And so it is a challenge. So I appreciate you kind of walking us through the process and some helpful tips as well. Wendi, where can our audience reach you to learn more and get in touch with you?
LinkedIn. If you can go to LinkedIn and just search my name at Wendi, Wendi, and my last name, Wray, Wray, please connect with me. And from there, we can start a conversation. Awesome. And the reason I love to bring people to connect with me on LinkedIn is because it's a stepping stone into learning and wiring ourselves to reach out to people on LinkedIn. And you could just say, hey, heard you on the podcast. And I'm happy to connect with you, even if you're not a veteran or you're a student. I've worked a lot too early in career teams, so that understanding, the whole hiring aspect of students is definitely also hard for everyone.
Very big change. Very big change.
Huge change.
Yes.
Come connect with me, ask me questions, and at the very least, if you see someone on my network or someone I can connect you with, I'm happy to do that as well. That's what LinkedIn is for, to connect other humans with other roles and get to learn from other people and hopefully find a mentor.
Yeah. Last question. I ask everybody who comes on the podcast this question, and I'm very excited to hear your answer. What is your why, Wendi? Why do you do this?
Truthfully, I went through this entire transition myself, and it was hard for me. And it was hard for me because, one, I didn't prepare ahead of time. So my goal and my why is to help others and encourage others to start as early as possible, to set themselves up as early as possible, because we're underrepresented. We're undervalued at times, and more specifically, women veterans. A lot of the times we think of a veteran, we think of an infantry soldier, and nothing wrong with that. But there are also so many women veterans that have served our country at different levels, done jobs, military police, we have field artillery, infantry, now women that are out there that bring so much value, and sometimes think that they have to start all over when really it's just a beginning of the next chapter, and they're just building into their career. They're building into that next chapter. So that's why I do what I do. And I'm just so grateful, Kevin, that you've invited me to share my voice to how I help other veterans, but also to shine light on the value that veterans bring. So I thank you on behalf of all the veterans, that hopefully we also get more hiring leaders to hire more veterans, because they bring so much value.
Oh, absolutely. They're ready. 100%. Yeah. And so I love that. I'm glad you highlighted supporting women veterans, because they are underserved. And frankly, that didn't click in my head until you said it just now, but you're obviously absolutely right in terms of it's not the first thing that you think of when you hear the word veteran. So thank you for the services that you're providing. If you would like to thank Wendi, and you're listening to this podcast right now, and you know somebody who will need some help, please forward this podcast along to them, whether it's on YouTube or Spotify or Apple. You can watch it on YouTube if you want, but share it with that person to help them, get them started, at least get them to be able to contact and connect with Wendi, to learn a little bit more about what they want to do and not feel so alone and lost. Second, if you enjoyed the podcast, make sure that you give us 5 stars. And please subscribe so you can see other shows as well that'll be coming up in the future. But we will have in the show notes ways to contact Wendi. We'll have her LinkedIn profile down there as well, to make sure it's as easy as possible to get in touch with her. And, Wendi, really appreciate you being on today. I learned a lot. We had a couple conversations around this. This was really informative to me, and I'm sure it's informative to our audience as well. So thank you so much for taking some time out of your day to jump on.
Thank you, Kevin.